Hey guys, welcome back to Norman Rebates. So today is a much less formal and completely unscripted video because I'm, as you can probably tell, not feeling the greatest. And also, I have lost the little foam doohickey filter that goes over my microphone. I'm gonna have to find a new one. I don't know where the old one went, but she's gone. She's just completely gone. I also am scared that I'm going to run out of Vintage Mysteries before I can replenish my list. So, Vintage Mysteries is now going to be posted on Fridays only, not Wednesdays and Fridays. Today's Tuesday. I'm recording this the day before it goes out because I like to have time to make sure that it gets ready to go and edited before it goes out on Wednesday. But today we're going to talk about a couple of ghost stories, a couple of paranormal experiences that I've personally had at my mom's house. But before I get started, I just want to apologize for background noise again, seeing as I don't have my little foam friend that goes on my microphone. I'm using the pop filter. I don't really have a desk set up to record at either, so it's kind of an awkward setup. I have to hold my microphone. I can't, set it on a desk right in front of me and just talk. I have to hold it, and it gets kind of uncomfortable. So if there's any background noise or shuffling noises, I'm very, very sorry for that. But we're going to jump into it. So, when I want to say 15 or 16, I don't really remember how old I was, my great-grandfather passed away, and it was really tragic for me because I was really close to my great-grandparents, and a lot of people don't even get to meet their great-grandparents, so I'm really thankful that I got to meet them, and I got to spend so much time with them. They were great people. They taught me a lot about life, and I think that's why I'm such an old soul, and I like lots of old things and old movies and old music and things like that. They pretty much, for the first at least 4 years of my life, were basically my parents. I spent so much time at their house, probably more like the first 8 or 9 years, because I spent so much time at their house. If I was sick and I couldn't go to school, I stayed there. During the summer, I would go there. During school holidays, if my mom still had to work, I would go there. I spent so much time there as a kid that it became my second home. They pretty much raised me, and they were great. My great-grandma and we were thicker than thieves, and my great-grandpa, at first, and this is kind of embarrassing to admit, but when I was really little, I was kind of scared of him because I just don't know why. I just was scared of him as a kid. But he wasn't a scary person, so that's why I don't really understand why I was scared of him. He was a really sweet old guy. I don't have any idea what was going on in my little kid brain that made me scared of my great-grandpa, but he was a great guy. And as he got older and as I got older, like I said, I think I was 15 or 16 when he died, we just got really close. And my great-grandma, unfortunately, she had to be moved into a nursing home because she had Alzheimer's just really, really bad. And it got to the point where my great-grandpa, who was also, I believe, in his 90s at the time, couldn't really take care of her. And she had to be moved into a nursing home. So for a while there, he lived in this little bitty white house all by himself. So when he passed away, it was really devastating for me, because that was really my first experience with death, and I'm really grateful that I wasn't exposed to it when I was a kid, and I wasn't really aware of death and the things surrounding death. So I'm really grateful for that. But he passed away when I was in high school, and it, like I keep saying, it was really hard on me. And shortly afterward, because we had just gotten this massive flat screen TV, not just in the screen size, but in the fact that it was just this massive, huge thing. And until my granddad passed away, it was just kind of, we hadn't had anything weird happen with it. It's just a big TV. It worked pretty well. And we needed a bigger TV because at the time we had this old Zenith mess from like early 90s. And we finally got this new TV. And we had, like I said, zero problems with it. It never did anything weird until after my grandpa died. My great-grandpa. And what it started doing was it would start turning on at the same time, roughly. It was never the exact same time. But roughly the same time every day. It would start kicking on roughly around noon or 1-ish. And then eventually it stopped doing it as frequently. But for a while there it would come on roughly noon to 1. So it wasn't like it was on a timer, even though my stepdad kept saying that he thought it was on a timer, but it was never at the exact same time. And it would just kick on to static, which would be weird, because when we would turn the TV off when we were done watching it, it would have been on an actual TV channel. So that was what was interesting about that, is that it would just keep kicking on. So that happened for a while, and we just chalked it up to some hiccup with the remote or something like that. But I don't really think it was, because it would kick on to static, but we would have an actual channel playing, like cartoons or A&E or something like that kicked on, like before we had turned it off, and then it would turn on to static every time. So that was what was interesting about that for us. And then roughly around that same time, we started noticing the kitchen drawer. We had a kitchen drawer full of like trivets and pot holders and heat resistant things, so we could put like pots and pans and cakes and stuff on the counters. And it's the bottom drawer on this stack of 3, and it would start randomly kicking itself open. But it was only that drawer. It had never, like I said, never done it before, and we had never noticed like any of the other drawers in the kitchen just kicking themselves on, or rather kicking themselves open. So it was really interesting that this drawer kept coming open. But I think the biggest thing that we noticed, or that I personally encountered anyway, was one day I was getting ready for school, and I believe I was about 16 or 17 at this point, and I was in the bathroom. And my sister, who is now in college, she would take showers in the morning and I would take showers at night. And she had taken her shower and was getting ready, and I was in the bathroom fixing my hair or brushing my teeth or just something. I think possibly washing my face. But I was at the bathroom mirror, which is across our tiny little bathroom from the shower. So I was at the mirror and had washed my face and was getting ready for school. And all of a sudden, the shower curtain comes out like somebody was lifting it from the bottom, completely up in the air, 90-degree angle from the shower curtain, or the shower rod, which immediately terrified me, because I watched this happen in the mirror and I was too afraid to turn around. I don't know what I thought I would see, but I was horrified and I was too scared to turn around. And it, like I said, complete 90-degree angle from the shower curtain rod, stayed upright for about 1.5 to 2 seconds, and then dropped. But the way that it dropped like it was incredibly heavy, not like fabric that kind of flutters and floats down. It dropped like it was full of stones, like a bag full of stones. And I remember sitting there for a couple of seconds and just being so stunned that it had happened. So that was probably the scariest thing I experienced in my house. But I know that my sister will tell you that especially when she was in middle school and when she was younger, would hear somebody walking up and down the hall And she would ask everybody in the mornings if they had been getting up and walking up and down the hall. And the answer was almost always no. Once I'm asleep, I usually don't get out of bed unless I'm sick. But she was hearing it almost every night, and I wasn't the one getting up, and nobody else would admit it if they were the ones getting up. I also experienced a couple of weird things with things around my room getting moved around, and recently I have noticed that too, and I have noticed a lot of scary things happen. And I think possibly the most frightening, I lied when I said it was the shower curtain because this story still gives me chills when I remember it. This was about a year ago. I was doing dishes one night and I had bent over, I had my headphones in, and I was listening to, I think, a podcast. I'm not entirely sure what I was listening to, but I had bent over to put a pot back underneath the counter in the entryway of the kitchen. And as I was bent over, I saw what looked like a pair of legs. And my sister was home, my mom was in bed, and my stepdad was in bed. So I looked up really quick because I thought it was my sister. And like I said, they were long, pale legs, and my sister is kind of pale by genetics, even though she likes to go tanning and things like that. She's still kind of pale by genetics, and this was the end of summer and into fall. Like I said, it was about a year ago. I looked up really quick and pulled my headphones out of my ears, and I was about to say, "What do you want?" when I realized there was nobody there. And so I ducked around the corner and looked into the living room really, really quickly. And at that point, I had, pulled my headphones out of my ears. And I was looking around. My sister's not in the living room, and even if she had sprinted, I would have either seen her or heard her. And I couldn't even imagine why my sister would want to do something like that anyway. Why she would play that kind of joke on me. She knows I'm really jumpy. And, I'm easily kind of easily scared in real life, even if horror movies don't really freak me out as much anymore. So after I finished putting away the rest of the dishes, I went to my sister's room, and I was about to ask her if she had been in the living room trying to scare me. But I noticed that she was asleep, and she had likely been asleep for a while, because my little sister sleeps like a rock. After she has been asleep for a couple of minutes, she's impossible to wake up. So I kind of whispered her name, and I was asking her if she had been in the living room, she had been in the kitchen. She was dead asleep. There was no waking her up, unless I walked up and shook the bed, and I wasn't going to do that because at that point I didn't think it had been her anyway. My mom is pretty quick to fall asleep as well, so I didn't think it was them, or my mom, or my stepdad. And even then, they were long, pale, very feminine looking legs, so it wouldn't have been my stepdad anyway. From that point on, I started to see, if I was sitting on my couch playing video games, I started to notice if I looked up in the hall, because of the way that our house is set up, the hallway is not directly in the line of sight. You can see the entryway of the hallway and a little bit down the hallway, but you can't see very far down the hallway from the couch. But you can see into the entryway of the hallway. And sometimes I would feel like somebody's looking at me from the hallway, or I've seen something out of the corner of my eye in the hallway, and I would look up really quickly, only to see the ends of strawberry blonde hair disappear into the hallway, like somebody had quickly ducked out of my line of sight. And the problem with that is nobody in my house is strawberry blonde. My sister, my mother, and I, we are all brunettes. My stepdad doesn't have hair, he's bald. And nobody ever visits our house that's strawberry blonde. So it was really interesting that I kept seeing this clearly reddish blonde hair when nobody in my house is reddish blonde. Something else that I've noticed shortly following these other things that I was noticing and seeing was that things in my room would get moved around, and this actually got worse after I went through a really rough breakup with a really abusive ex-girlfriend. Things that she had given me, things that had belonged to her, different things like that, would be moved around my room, which was really kind of terrifying at first. I eventually boxed up everything that I owned from my ex-girlfriend, but I hadn't gotten rid of the box yet. And one night, I had been at work, and I came back to just get changed into my pajamas and crawl up into bed and go to sleep, and it was like the box, like somebody had just strewn everything that was in the box around. I'm not a very clean person anyway, not very organized, but it was like somebody had just ripped through the box and torn everything out and thrown it across the room. And my first thought was maybe my sister had been looking for something. I don't know why she would specifically look in that box and then not put everything back after she had torn into it, unless she was in a hurry. But I just kind of brushed it off and figured my sister had done it, and when I got the chance to ask my sister about it, she told me she hadn't been in my room for days. And then after I had packed everything back up into the box, I went to bed, and then the next day I had to go to work again. I came back, and it was like somebody had taken that box and flipped it, just carried it over to my bed, flipped it over, everything that came out, the cards, the stuffed animals, the letters, everything had been flipped over and dumped out on my bed, and then the box had been moved back over to my bookshelf where it had been sitting for a couple of days. And that really freaked me out, because if it had been my sister, again, going through it, looking for something, she either would have A, packed it back up, or B, not bothered putting the box back if she wasn't going to completely put everything back in the first place. So I knew at that point that it hadn't been anyone in my house, like my mom or my sister, and my stepdad doesn't come into my room for any reason. So it was really strange to me to see that this box had been tipped upside down completely, and all of the contents had been dumped onto my bed. So not long after that, I took everything that was in that box and I got rid of it. Because there was no need to keep it around, especially if whatever ghost or whatever was in my house was attached onto it. At this point, whatever ghost or spirit that is in my house, she doesn't quite do anything that scary. And I have a feeling it's a female. I just get that kind of feminine best friend or feminine, like, cousin feeling from it. And she still makes herself known to me a lot more than she does anyone else in the house, I think. I don't think my great-granddad's spirit is here anymore. If he is, he hasn't really made himself known as much as this female spirit has. But that's just my set of paranormal experiences at my mom's house. I may do another one of these about my dad's house and my grandma's house. I may do like 2 more videos on this. They'll hopefully be a lot shorter than this one. But as you can tell, I'm really not feeling the best. My throat's hurting really bad. And yeah, it's just been a hectic couple of days. I'm trying to get this video recorded and ready to go by tomorrow, which is today, technically, by the time you guys hear this. But anyway, thanks for listening to Norman Rebates. Stay spooky. If you want to see more of my haunting content, be sure to click subscribe. And like, comment, and share on this video. That helps out the channel more than you could ever possibly imagine. And yeah, thanks for stopping by. Peace.